Hey everybody, Ben Beck from Next Level, inviting you to join myself and Adam Gorey every Sunday for another episode of The Showcast. We bring you the best stories in pop culture, the newest stories in film and television, as well as movie reviews, what's going to be released in DVD, as well as coming to the box office for the weekend, and much, much more. All you have to do is search Next Level Radio under the iTunes Store and subscribe, or simply go to our website, www.nextlevelradioonline.com, and you can find our current shows as well as all of our past shows right there on the website. So we hope you join us every Sunday for another new episode of The Showcast.
Primetime Fantasy Football is brought to you by Next Level Radio. Head to nextlevelradioonline.com for past episodes of Primetime Fantasy Football and The Showcast, plus celebrity guest spotlight. Now on to this week's Primetime Fantasy Football.
People I never thought about associating with. I don't know what it is. Talk to me. Check it out. Hey, from the Vegas with a mansion on my land. Full jacuzzis and my neighbors can't stand. The way I live is oh so fast. Ain't got your ladies and prime time is all that.
Whoa, Dion. It's not that kind of prime time.
Yeah, man, it's Primetime Fantasy Football on Next Level Radio.
Well, alright. Yeah. We are the champions, my friends. And we'll keep on fighting till the end.
Welcome into this week's Primetime Fantasy Football presented by Next Level Radio. I am Adam Gorey, joined by Steve Richards. Steve, how are you tonight?
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome. Joe's not joining us again. He, I guess, made other plans and didn't realize we were going to do a podcast this week. So congratulations to everybody, by the way, who won their league last week or won their game to place in their league or had a positive outcome from last week's games. Congratulations. If you have your championship this week, we're here to help. Steve and I are going to run down some of the playoff teams, and we're just going to warn you. We're going to give you a red, yellow, green of what we think, our confidence level of playing guys on said playoff teams as far as if you have to worry if they're going to rest or not. And Steve's going to give you a little, though we don't officially condone betting, we are going to give you a little bit of our picks against the spread, and I see an over-under in there as well, so a little extra for you. If you want to parlay these 5 picks that Steve's going to give you, you have to just send a check in his name with part of your winnings after you win this weekend.
Yeah.
So I guess let's real quick recap last week's stuff. We're not going to give you any high lows or over-unders or anything. We're just going to run through this real quick, as this will be probably one of our last shows. We might do an award show. Steve and I were talking about off air, so we might do that. Just keep your eye out for that. Head to facebook.com/Next Level Radio online, or follow us on Twitter at NXT Level Radio. And then, like I'd mentioned last week, we'll probably have a couple podcasts over the off season talking about free agency stuff, draft, stuff like that. So let's just real quick run down last week's results that Steve and I had. On our highs for last week, I had CJ Anderson got the green light. He got almost 20 points. Denver plays the Raiders this week. So actually, we can talk about him, I guess, when we talk about our confidence level. But, I mean, it is the Raiders, so I got to think they're at least playing him a little bit. So you got to run him out there, I would think. Right, Steve?
Yeah, they haven't clinched their bye yet either.
Right.
Sure, they would like to do that and give Peyton Manning an extra week of rest. So that loss to Cincinnati last night. We're recording this on Tuesday. The loss to Cincinnati on Monday night does not help them this week. So they're still going to have to play some starters this week, at least until the game gets out of hand, which could take a little while.
Could be 10 minutes into the game. Then I have Marcus Colston, probably about like a yellowish, maybe a red, 8 points in a standard league, 14 in a PPR. I think I talked last week about the team he was going up against last week. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head. I don't forget, but they were giving up like double digits to at least one wide receiver, and of course that game they didn't give up double digits to any. But he was the highest scoring wide receiver on the team, if that counts for anything. I'm not sure that it does.
It's not.
The Saints, they play the
Bucks.
Buccaneers this week. So I mean, they're out of the playoff contention officially. But how you feeling about Colston this week? I mean, I'm okay. It's a good matchup. So I mean, if you have to play him, I'm not. I like him in like a flex wide receiver 3 again.
Yeah, that's kind of where he's been all year. If you're going to play him, and you certainly don't have to worry about him sitting or anything like that because they don't have anything to play for. So
yeah,
get a full game out of him.
Yeah, exactly. And then next up, Steve, you want to go over your 2 guys?
Sure. Yeah, I did the same as Adam. 1 green, 1 red. The green was Lamar Miller, who ended up scoring 21 points. So that was good. I kind of had a good feeling last week about the Dolphins, and that worked out with Lamar Miller anyway. They actually are at home to the Jets, who have a pretty good run defense. So the matchup isn't as good, but this is a game where all these Week 17 games can be kind of weird, where you don't really know what to expect and who's going to come out. Kind of who won in the game more, I guess, so to speak. But the Dolphins were eliminated last week, but Lamar Miller is still going to play, but he's going to play against a pretty good run defense. So he'll probably have about an average week, I would think. You could probably get running back 2 numbers out of him. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I would agree. Like you said, it is a good run defense. And I mean, he hasn't been getting a lot of touches. And I saw a stat last week, something about like his yards per carry in his first 10 touches is pretty good, like 5 or 6 or somewhere in there, pretty good numbers. And after 10, though, it goes down to like 2 point something or like low 3s or something like that. So that might explain why he's not getting as many touches. And if he doesn't get that many touches in this game, you might not see, he might be very touchdown dependent, but he's a starting running back in the league. And I mean, just by sheer numbers, there's only 32 teams, and if he's an RB2, he's like 24. So I got to think he's better than 8 other running backs in the league this week against the Jets.
Sure, that works. Nice little math problem you worked out there. The other guy is in a game that matters very much so, is Matt Stafford. He didn't do well last week, only scored 7.9 points last week. But this week, like I said, in a game that matters, between 2 11-4 squads. Good for the Lions, remain 11-4 this year.
I basically blinked and the Lions are 11-4. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The problem is they're at Green Bay.
Yeah, in Lambeau.
I could see some garbage points. The Packers are 7-0 at home, 7-0 at home, essentially untouchable at home. Speaking of untouchable at home, Aaron Rodgers. So there'll be a lot of points, and the Lions are going to have to score to keep up. So if they do, you could get some good production out of Matt Stafford, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky because sometimes when teams get down, especially to you've seen the Packers go up big on teams, and then they play the pass and they get a lot of turnovers that way. I've seen the Packers defense do pretty well on games where they blow people out at home, and Matt Stafford's been he's been a lot inconsistent this year.
Yeah,
with and without Calvin Johnson. I mean, 8 points this past week, 10 points the week before, and then 2 weeks before that in a row over 20 points. So, and then 2 weeks before that in a row below 15. So it's really hard to see what to expect from him. If you are in your championship week this week, or if you're playing one of those weekly fantasy teams, I don't know that I have the confidence to run him out there this week. I just don't know that I can trust him in a big game like this.
Yeah, it's a tough team. You're going to kind of rely on those garbage points or rely on the Lions to keep up with the Packers offensively. And like you said, it's just too inconsistent, really.
Yeah, and I mean, if they do get down, I don't know that you do get garbage points, because if they get down big enough, they're probably just going to rest their starters as they've already clinched a playoff spot. So at that point, they have nothing to play for.
That's actually a really good point. There might not be any garbage points this week just because of if you lose, it's not the end of the world. Yeah,
so I'm going to say bench him this week. If you have to, if you're in a championship league, or if you're looking for like a fantasy weekly thing, I don't know what his value's at right now, but it's probably not high enough.
Last time, obviously a division opponent. So in the last game against Green Bay, they won. They beat Green Bay at home. It's 19-7, but Stafford went for 246, no touchdowns and 2 picks. So he struggled against the defense despite a winning effort. So it could, like you said, could be another tough day for him.
Yeah, and in those weekly leagues, and I know, Steve, you don't play them, but You get 60,000 salary in the most of them for all the positions, and he's right now going for about 7,800, which is $2,000 less than Aaron Rodgers. But I got to think there's better options. Well, I mean, you got Mark Sanchez at 7,400. Colin Kaepernick, I wouldn't say because he has a tough Arizona matchup, but I mean, I would actually rather pay a little bit extra and get a guy like even Eli Manning this week. Probably has a really good matchup against the Eagles, and he's only 400 more dollars than Stafford. Tannehill against the Jets, who have a really bad defense, is only 8,300. Cam Newton's 8,300. So I mean, there's a lot of guys that there might not be too many guys as low as Stafford that you want to play, but there's a lot of guys just barely a little bit higher than him that I would much rather spend the money on.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So then let's go to our lows from last week. I had red on Cam Newton. I actually got two reds here. Cam Newton was a red. I'm not going to make excuses, but I didn't realize Joe Hayden wasn't going to play. But, I mean, Cam did it a lot with his legs anyway, so it might not have mattered. I like him this week against Atlanta. This is a meaningful game. Atlanta's not a very good defense. Cam is starting to look like the Cam of old. And unfortunately for people who might already be out of fantasy leagues, might be too late for you. But if you are in your championship this week and you do have him, I really like him this week against the Falcons. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, when we do that red, green, yellow, if there's a red team and they have a quarterback, I think I like, because there's half a chance that Cam Newton got dropped after that back injury. He might be available. He wasn't all that productive before anyway.
Yeah.
So you might get lucky and have Cam Newton be available. So he could be a really good option as a Week 17 guy. If you have you're on one of those teams where they might bench their quarterback and you're looking for some production in Week 17.
Yeah, exactly. And then next up, I had a red on Andre Williams. He had 110 rushing yards, so it wasn't even boosted by a touchdown, so that's why I got a red there. 11 points. Didn't really see that one coming. I think I actually guaranteed he wouldn't get over 100 yards, and he did. He plays the Eagles this week. I still don't like him. I just can't trust him. I mean, honestly, I think last week was more of an anomaly than anything for him to get. I think he broke a big run, and that's probably where he got most of his chunk yardage from, I think. I'm not sure, but the Eagles have a pretty decent run defense. I think where they're going to be exploited is in the pass, and I think you see Eli and Odell Beckham Jr. have big games, but I think Andre Williams is going to have a relatively quiet day against the Eagles defense on Sunday. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I have to agree, and I just have to agree with the first thing that you said. That he's just too inconsistent. He's just too hard to trust. Especially this week, you're definitely in a championship if you're playing because it's Week 17. So
yeah, right now
just too difficult to trust.
Yeah, and he's going for 6,800, which is Le'Veon Bell's going for 94. So I mean, it's not a bad number, but for a guy who's inconsistent, you look at Alfred Morris. Is actually less than him. He's at 6,700. Jonathan Stewart's at 6,600 against Atlanta's bad run defense.
Yeah, that's definitely better value, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, you definitely have some better options out there. I'm looking here. Lamar Miller is 6,700, so also cheaper. Justin Forsett, who's had a little bit of issues in the past couple of weeks, is only $100 more now at that point, so you might be able to play the value there. Mark Ingram's at 73. So I mean, there's a lot of guys around, kind of like the Stafford thing, who are more consistent that if I'm putting my money on, I'd rather go with them.
Sure, absolutely. I would agree. As you said, with the inconsistencies. Last week, I, again, one red, one green. The red ended up being Jeremy Hill, who scored 18.7, which sounds bad, but he had an 85-yard touchdown run. So
yeah. Did you see the run?
No, I did. I think I saw that he broke a tackle. I only saw the beginning of the run.
Yeah, it was a pretty good run. I mean, he actually essentially pushed Mohamed Sanu out of the way so that he could. He kind of like pushed him almost into a blocker and then ran the rest of the way. It was actually a pretty nice run. Not quite as nice as Marshawn Lynch's run this week, but still nice.
Yeah, so I mean, he definitely had that ability, and I was aware of that before giving that out, but I didn't know that he would get a 14.5-point run and score 18.7 total. So that was kind of a tough break. Cincinnati is in a very big game this week. They're going to be somebody that we'll talk about, I would think, in that green, yellow, red segment that we're going to do with teams. So we can probably get on to Jeremy Hill later and just go into Calvin Benjamin, who might be another guy. We might talk about the Atlanta-Carolina game a little bit too, but he was a green for the lows. He ended up with 4.7, or if you're in a PPR, 9.7. I just thought it would be tough, even though Cam scored a bunch. Like you said, he did a bunch with his legs, so it wasn't too much through the air, and Calvin Benjamin wasn't the beneficiary of that all that much either. So,
do you remember what I said when I told you if I agreed or disagreed with you last week about Kelvin Benjamin?
No, I don't. What did you say?
I said I was still going to run him out there, though I could see him getting 12 targets for like 4 or 5 catches and like 40 or 50, 60 yards somewhere in there.
Yeah.
He did have 12 targets. He did have 5 catches, and he did have 47 yards.
Yep, that's about right. So
yeah, so
that's Cam Newton.
That's about what I kind of expected, or we both kind of expected, and I think he almost brought down a one-handed touchdown catch. I heard. I didn't get to see the game, but I heard he almost had a touchdown. So that's the thing for him. I mean, he's a guy who can get touchdowns. He can't, he's a big threat, but if he doesn't get that touchdown, sometimes it's not going to help you. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. And like you said, it's kind of a week-to-week thing. It's tough to trust him when it's somebody like Cam Newton's throwing to him, no matter who's doing it, even if it's Atlanta's defense that he's facing this week.
Yeah, I still like him.
Yeah,
as you know.
Yeah.
So let's see. Our Zero to Heroes last week, Deshaun Jackson got the green light, 12.6 points in a standard 16.6 in a PPR. Kind of exactly the same thing. We basically both called it, him getting a couple big passes, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep, that's about right. It's the perfect storm type scenario where he all he does is get big plays, and all the Eagles secondary does is give up big plays. So
yeah, and they play. I believe they play the Cowboys this week. So I think he comes back down to earth a little bit. I think he doesn't quite get over that 100-yard mark. So I think I'm okay with putting him back in like a wide receiver 3 or 4 category this week. I think last week I had him as like a 2. But they're home against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are actually pretty good on the road. So though you might see a lot of garbage time on the Redskins end because the Cowboys, and we'll talk about the Cowboys a little bit later. But
yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be playing Deshaun this week though.
Okay, and that's an interesting one. I mean, Griffin is always inconsistent. They had a nice game. You're kind of just counting on the big play, so it's tough to count on. Who was my guy? My guy was Steve Smith Sr., who, if you'll remember, I just put him in to have a cool quote, so it doesn't really count, but he only scored 4.9.
Thanks for asking.
Week. They were they eliminated last week, or were they eliminated before that? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but they're definitely eliminated, so.
Yeah, they're out now. 9-6. I had to think they were just eliminated last week. So Steve Smith, they get the Browns this week. I'm not sure what the status of Joe Hayden is, and I'm not sure if it's going to affect Steve Smith either. Oh, I remember this game's coming back to me now. Flacco was absolutely terrible in the first half. He had like 2 completions for the whole first half. So it's tough to get any.
I told you I didn't like him last week.
Yeah, way to go. It's tough to get any kind of production when your quarterback throws it to the other team more often than he completes it to your own team. So
I need to get a sound effect for when any of us toots our own horn. So we play a little toot your own horn sound effect.
That might get annoying since we do it so often.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's just tough this week. He's been down for a couple weeks in a row now, so
yeah.
Steve Smith is probably avoidable, other than the fact that he's a cool person to root for.
Steve Smith or Deshaun Jackson?
I would play Deshaun Jackson. I'm not as down on Deshaun Jackson as you are. I think the Cowboys have a chance to rest some guys, and I think Deshaun Jackson can get in behind for that big play.
I'd still go Deshaun over Steve Smith too, though.
Yeah.
How about Steve Smith or Kelvin Benjamin?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'm going to take Kelvin Benjamin. I think I'm going to take guys who are in a competitive game.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Something for.
Yeah.
I think I like those guys a little bit more because it's a little bit more natural. Like I said, the Week 17 games can be a little bit weird with how they get and when there's nothing to play for and things like that.
Yeah, not as tough for me. I like Kelvin, obviously. So let's go to Don't Buy the Hype from last week. I got a red on Mike Wallace. I was correct in him not getting over 100 yards. Unfortunately, he got 2 touchdowns to take care of that. So he got 17.8 points. They are in a meaningless game, like we said, against the Jets, who the Jets don't have a very good secondary. So, I mean, I could see this being a pretty good matchup for him. PPR, obviously, you're still going with Jarvis Landry because I think he had another 8 catches last week. But in a standard league, I guess I could buy Wallace. I mean, he finds a way to score touchdowns, it seems. So
I don't have a problem in the flex type of thing.
yeah, Mike Wallace or Deshaun Jackson.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think I'll take Deshaun. Like I said, I'm not as low on him as you are.
Yeah, I think I'd take Mike Wallace just because I am lower on Deshaun. But
yeah,
and then you had Julian Edelman who didn't play.
Yeah, I win.
Is he gonna play this week? I don't even know.
I would doubt it.
Guess
the
Patriots pretty much.
The Patriots are going to be a red team. All
right. Well, do you want to go over the playoff real quick, or do you want to do your picks?
We can do the playoff, and then we can do the winner last.
Let's start off with the AFC.
Okay.
So far, New England has clinched the AFC East and home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs. So, like we kind of said, they're going to be a red.
Sure. They're gonna. You don't even know if they're gonna play at all. They might. That's got. The first words that came to my mind are spring training, but that's wrong. Preseason game written all.
Or spring training.
Yeah.
Denver's clinched the AFC West, Indianapolis, AFC South, Cincy, and Pittsburgh just playoff berths at this point. So the Denver Broncos, let's start off. They play Oakland. They clinch a first-round bye if they win or tie, or Cincinnati loses, or Cincinnati ties and Indianapolis wins. Now, Cincinnati plays after Denver, so that it's not like they'll know going into that game if Cincinnati lost and they can rest guys. So I think they're at least going to play them for like 2 quarters, and you might not see them after halftime. So for me, that's a yellow because they can, even in as bad as it is, even in 2 quarters against Oakland, they still have a chance to put up some decent points.
See, I'm also going to say yellow, but I'm going to say it for a different reason. I think they will play until the game is in hand, but I think that it won't take long for the game to get in hand. So,
yeah, that's kind of what I meant by 2 quarters. I thought they'd be up enough, maybe by halftime, that they might go into 3 just to lock it up, unless they're up so much that it just doesn't matter. But
yeah, because I think a bye is really important, especially for a team like the Broncos with Peyton Manning. You don't want him to be playing any more games than he has to.
Yeah, they're a 14.5-point favorite in this game. So
yeah, it could get over. It could get over quick, and that could be a half. But they could also leak into the third quarter.
Exactly.
So it's a yellow with a green tint because I think to get there, they'll score a bunch.
Yeah, exactly. They have to. They're gonna have to score a bunch if they're gonna come out. So
yeah, exactly.
So I think you can still. I mean, if you're in your championship week, I would say you can still play the guys. If you're looking at like a weekly fantasy thing with the salary cap, I might say find somebody else.
Yeah, that's perfect. You put it perfectly there.
Next up, you have the Bengals. They play at Pittsburgh, who is also looking for a spot here. Cincinnati, I believe did I say they already both clinched playoff berths? Yeah. So,
yeah, they're both in. This is a seeding game.
Yeah, so Cincinnati clinches the AFC North if they win. Pittsburgh clinches the AFC North if they win. Right. Cincinnati clinches a first-round bye if they win and Denver loses or ties. Or if Cincinnati ties, Denver loses, and Indy loses or ties. Like some confusing stuff in some of these. But I think Cincinnati has more to play for, though. I don't like as many guys on their team as Pittsburgh. Like I think both of these teams are green. I think they'll play each other close. I don't think it's going to get out of hand. It's going to be a good game. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. I don't know if I'd play Roethlisberger because of the matchup. Or Dalton, but Jeremy Hill, Gio Bernard, AJ Green. I think you're okay with playing all of them, so I'm going to give them a green for both teams.
Yeah, I assume AJ Green will play.
Yeah, he did hurt his arm. Monitor that throughout the week, I guess.
So that's more of an injury thing than a team thing. Like you said, it's kind of we've kind of did it a long-winded way, but these are both greens. These guys are going to play it like it's a regular game because they're playing for a division.
Yeah, and that game's
winner hosts a playoff game, loser doesn't. So
yeah, that game's almost a week away. It's another Monday night game for Cincinnati.
Is it? I didn't think they had Monday night game for a week.
Oh no, you're right. It's Sunday night at 8:30. That's right.
Yeah.
I saw the 8:30 tag.
So it's the season finale of the Sunday night games.
Yeah. So green on both of them for both of us. So let's go on to the Chargers. They play at Kansas City, and I think is Kansas City still in it?
No, Kansas City is. I think all of these. Is it all done except for...
I think Kansas City might still be in it, but they need a whole lot of help. Let me just check. Yeah, they are. They need to win Baltimore needs to lose, and Houston needs to lose.
Okay, well that makes Kansas City a green if you want to play Jamal Charles, but
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah. Let's look at the Chargers now. So the Chargers, the Chargers can get in if they win, or if they tie and Baltimore either loses or ties. So I would say a green for the Chargers because they're going to be trying to win regardless of the score.
Yeah, this is where I don't have the times in front of me, but this is where if Baltimore loses, are they in?
The San Diego would have to tie.
And then Baltimore. Oh, so they need to win anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're going to
so
be playing for a tie.
That's a green then for sure.
Yeah. All right, so then Baltimore, Kansas City, we already said was green. Baltimore against Cleveland. They clinch a playoff spot if they win and San Diego loses or ties, or they tie and San Diego loses.
Okay. And the Chargers are at 1 o'clock, so so the timing doesn't exactly matter.
Yeah,
Baltimore's also 1 o'clock, so they'll be playing at the same time. So
that's
definitely a green for both of these.
Yeah,
teams.
it's a green because they have to win again. So
yeah, regardless, they have to win. So it turns out Baltimore isn't eliminated. I thought they were, but I guess they're fighting for that last wild card spot. So
yeah, they need some help.
Yeah, they need a winner.
Yeah. So Kansas City, we already said. Houston plays Jacksonville. They need a lot of help too. They need to win, have Baltimore lose, and San Diego lose. Gonna be a green, I guess. I mean,
all these teams that need to win and need a ton of help are obviously going to play to win.
Right, and even if they're losing, they're still going to be playing their starters because they're not. I mean, it's the end of the season, so.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess it's just New England is a green, and then or is a red, and the Broncos are a yellow that's close to a green.
Yeah, and everybody else is pretty much a.
Yeah, and so you can pretty much run everybody else out in the AFC.
So next up you have, and this is interesting because in the NFC, nobody's really clinched anything yet except for playoff berth. Like all 6 teams, 5 of the 6 teams are already picked, and nobody's clinched a first round bye or anything like that. So it makes it interesting because you would make that think, everybody's green, right? Wrong. So we're going to tell you why. Dallas plays at Washington. They clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs if they win, Arizona loses or ties, and Detroit and Green Bay tie. AKA, that's not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, no, it's just not going to happen. So who does Arizona play? Do they play St. Louis? I think that's a 4 o'clock game.
Yeah. No, Arizona gets the 49ers at 4:25.
That's right. So they very well could lose that game. That's right. The Seahawks get St. Louis, but
San Francisco's a 6-point favorite.
Detroit and Green Bay's not going to tie. It's not going to happen. So now Dallas clinches a first round bye if they win, Seattle loses or ties, and Arizona loses or ties, or if they win, Detroit and Green Bay ties. Or if if Seattle loses and Arizona loses, which isn't going to happen, Seattle plays St. Louis at home. Or Dallas ties, Seattle ties, Arizona loses or ties, Detroit, Green Bay does not end in a tie.
You got all that?
It's kind of ridiculous. By the way, we're getting this off Forbes.com, so I mean, if you want to go check it out for yourself, you can. I think there's a really good chance they rest guys in this game. Because I don't think that, Washington's not a good team. Even though they just beat the Eagles, but that's a different thing. I just think they're not going to be able to get the home field advantage. They need a little bit of help just to get a first round bye. So I think there gets to a point maybe in the third quarter. This is a yellow for me. It's not a red. Did I say it was a red already?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it's a yellow. For me, it's a yellow. Yeah. I just worry about them, especially DeMarco Murray. He was very limited in last week's game against the Colts, and I just think he could be limited again this week. And speaking of the Colts, did we mention them? I don't think they showed up on the list because they're
locked in.
They're locked in, so they're a red as well for me.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we should mention that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're locked into the 3 no matter what.
Yeah, their seating's really not gonna change much, but yeah. So they're a red, but yeah, Dallas is a yellow for me. What about you?
I think you said it with DeMarco Murray. I would be fine rolling the Cowboys out if it was Romo and Des Bryant and even Witten. If you're obviously the tight end class is down this year, Witten's a pretty good option. But Murray is the one, you said it. Maybe it's they're in Bronco territory in the sense that I would probably play him if I was in a Week 17 championship matchup, probably just because I don't have any other options. But if I'm playing one of those 1 week things, that there might be better options than DeMarco Murray just because they might sit him.
I would agree with
that. Once the game rolls on a little bit.
Yeah, and again, we're recording this on Tuesday. Games are until Sunday. So, I mean, obviously, if news comes out that they're not going to play, don't play.
Yeah, that would make everything we said moot.
Yes. Detroit now, they play at Green Bay, big game. They clinch the NFC North if they win or tie. They clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs. If they win, Seattle loses or ties, Arizona loses or ties. Or if Detroit ties, Seattle loses, Arizona loses, Dallas loses or ties. Keeping track. Detroit also clinches a first round bye if they win. Obviously, if they would clinch home field advantage throughout if they win. But if they win, if they tie and Dallas loses or ties, or if they tie, Seattle loses and Arizona loses. So I don't think Detroit's going to win this game. We kind of talked about Matt Stafford and his inconsistency problems, but I'm still okay rolling out Calvin Johnson. The only thing with this is you might run into another situation, and I guess I already mentioned it, right? With if they get down a lot, there's not going to be garbage time because they'll rest them.
Right, yeah, that definitely makes me nervous. And that was a great point by you. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so this is probably yellow for me.
Yeah, I could see yellow, but only because we both think they're going to get blown out.
Yeah.
Like if you think the game's going to be good, go ahead and roll them out because obviously they have a ton to play for. But we both think they're going to get blown out, and if they are trending toward losing, then they're just going to take their guys out instead of get garbage points.
Yeah, the line opened up at 6.5. It's already at 7.5. It's only Tuesday.
Yeah,
so keep an eye on that. So then next up you have Green Bay versus Detroit. Obviously, like we said, they can clinch the NFC North in a first round bye with a win, which I think they're going to do. And they also clinch home field advantage throughout if they win and Seattle loses or ties. And that's it. Theirs is easy. Look at that. I'm giving them a green because although you know what, it comes into play again if they get up big enough. But I actually think this is like kind of Broncos territory for me. But I'm still going to give them a green only because on the off chance that they don't blow them out and the game is close, they're going to play the whole game and you could see a high scoring affair here.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a green as well, just because don't get tricky and sit a Green Bay Packer because of these scenarios and things like that, just because we're talking about it. If you have a Packer, he's been a stud for you, so don't get tricky now. Just go ahead and roll out your Packers if you have your Packers. So. Yeah,
and Aaron Rodgers has had a couple not great weeks in a row, and I think they're going to want to get things back on track before the playoffs. So I think you could see him, if he struggles early, even if they get if Eddie Lacy breaks a couple long runs, but Rodgers is still struggling, I think you could see him play into the fourth quarter and everything just to try and get things sorted out.
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing with Andrew Luck because he was so terrible last week, and they took him out early, but I think they might just do the same thing again this week, which keeps the Colts at a red, I would think.
Yeah, I don't think they even cared about last week's game. I think it was pretty apparent too.
Yeah.
Then let's go to Seattle. They play St. Louis. They clinch the NFC West if they win, or if they tie and Arizona loses or ties, or if Arizona loses. I think they're both 4 o'clock games though, so it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Now they can clinch home field advantage if they win, and Detroit and Green Bay game does not end in a tie. So it's crazy to think, by the way, not fantasy related, but how far Seattle has come from where they were where they were in the beginning of the season. I think they were 3-3 at one point, and everybody was panicking.
I know they're 11-4 now.
Yeah, so I mean they've really gotten back on track here and are going to be a scary team in the playoffs. But all they basically have to do is win to get home field advantage, and I think I think that's probably going to be the case because I don't think that Detroit Green Bay game ends in a tie. Or they can get it if they win and Dallas loses or ties. Or if they tie, Arizona loses or ties, Dallas loses or ties, Green Bay ties. Green Bay and Detroit tie. All they got to do is win. They get a first round bye. I'm going to give them a green. I'm going to skip the last two scenarios, by the way, because it really doesn't matter. I'm going to give them a green. I think it's more of a Pete Carroll thing. I think he's going to play them pretty close to the end of the game.
I think it's green just because they have plenty to play for.
Yeah.
And they're at home, and they look like the Seahawks at home of old at this point. Like you said, they were really trending in the right direction. So
Yeah.
I would play all Seahawks that I would have played anyway.
Yeah, and I could be way off base here, and maybe I'm just making this up, but I could have sworn they were in a similar situation last year where they had already clinched pretty much home field advantage and everything like that, and they still ended up playing the starters for quite a bit of time. I could be
seems like something Pete Carroll would do.
Yeah,
I don't remember, but
be completely
certainly, wrong. Certainly possible.
All that gum chewing goes to your head. So next up, the Arizona Cardinals. They play at San Francisco. They clinch the West if they win and Seattle loses or ties, or if they tie and Seattle loses. They can clinch home field advantage with a bunch of other things. They clinch a first round bye if they win and Seattle loses. I'm not even going to keep going because Seattle's probably not going to lose. So they're in the playoffs, and I think this is a red for me. Same thing. If they look up at the scoreboard and see Seattle's up big, and if they're down or if they're up, whatever which direction, I don't like their offense in general. I'll play their defense, obviously, but offensively, I don't like them in general, and I don't like them, with all this playoff scenario crap going on. That I don't think they have a whole lot to gain either way, and I don't think they have a whole lot of chance to change their seeding. So I'm going to give this one a red.
Yeah, I think you said it all as is. You can give them whatever color you want, but what Cardinal offensive player are you playing at this point anyway?
Yeah.
With Logan Thomas at quarterback, their offense just isn't working. I would absolutely play their defense because Kaepernick and the 49ers are also dysfunctional.
Yeah, I feel like they give up a ton of sacks.
Yeah, so what I would say is I would play the Cardinals defense regardless of what color I'm giving them, and I wouldn't play any of their offensive players regardless of what color I would giving them. So I'm not going to give them a color.
Is the Niners defense an interesting play here?
Oh, for sure. I would play that's a good stream. I mean, you probably can't get the Niners defense off waivers.
Yeah, but in
a streaming option
weekly
or
league.
A 1 week thing.
Yeah.
Do you do defenses with the 1 week league?
You do, yes.
Yeah, so that's a great option. With, like I said, I think they decided Logan Thomas was going to start this week, and that's it. They're just tough with on their third, fourth quarterback now. So.
Yeah, actually, the Niners are only looking at $5,000. Lowest you can pay is $4,500. So only $500 more than the lowest. The highest being the Seahawks. Yeah, the highest being the Seahawks at $55. So you can save yourself a few $100 there and go with them. I think that's a good play. And the over/under is only 36.5, so they're anticipating a low-scoring game on this one anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So the last two we got, I think these are the last two. Let me check. Are we on the last page here? Yeah. Carolina at Atlanta. Winner takes all, essentially. Or if they tie, Carolina goes to the playoffs. So what are you giving Atlanta and Carolina?
I'll give them both greens because they have so much to play for. I guess if you were going to play them anyway, the pickings are kind of slim from these two teams to begin with. It's kind of Cam Newton, Kelvin Benjamin-ish, Julio Jones for sure, Roddy White I would play, and Jonathan Stewart probably I would also play.
Yeah.
If you have those guys and you were going to roll them out, go ahead and roll them out because, like you said, these guys have plenty to play for. And the winner wins a division, the loser gets a top 10 pick in the draft. So it's not like they have anything to sit.
Yeah.
They're not in otherwise.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. You pretty much said it all. Anyone that you were comfortable playing with on those teams last week, you're comfortable with playing this week.
For sure. Absolutely.
So let's...
I guess it should be said that anybody that we haven't mentioned doesn't have anything to play for. So go ahead and play those guys as well because they're just in a game and they don't have any reason to sit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's go on to your picks this week, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get bring the people some extra candy Christmas candy headed into Christmas. I got a bunch of winners. Everybody's getting points this week, which is always good. 'Tis the season of giving, so All my winners are getting points this week. I have the Titans plus the 6.5. They're at home against the Colts. Like we said, the Colts are locked into their seed, so 6.5 is plenty of points for me. The Redskins are plus 7 against Dallas. We mentioned Dallas might do some resting of their players as well, and the Redskins are getting a touchdown. The Eagles are getting 3 at the New York Giants, and I just think the Eagles are better than the Giants and maybe have a little bit of something to prove. They've lost 3 in a row, so they have some pride to play for. So I think the Eagles can beat the Giants outright, and getting some points is always good. Then the Panthers in that pivotal NFC South matchup we talked about, they're getting 4. They're the road team at Atlanta. It's a tough one, but I like the pick, and I just like the points because I think that's going to be a close game. Could be a field goal game. So if you're giving me 4 points, that's a win. And then I'll give you an over/under as well if you prefer those. Whenever I give you an over/under, it's always going to be an over because nobody likes to root for an under. So punch the points. Punch the points on the Chargers-Chiefs game. The over/under right now is only 43, as I have it. So the Chargers have a pretty good offense, and the Chiefs can keep pace, I think. So 43 is not too many points, and I think that it could get there. 24-20, that gives you 44 points. So I think it could be a game in that range. So we'll go the Titans plus the 6.5, the Redskins plus the 7, Eagles plus the 3, Panthers plus the 4, and Chargers-Chiefs over 43 to give you a little extra money in your pocket for Christmas.
Yeah, that Eagles line, I thought the Eagles were going to lose that game until I saw that line. I think that's an Eagles line right there.
Yeah, it's an Eagles line, yeah. And it is, like we said, it's only Tuesday. So if you're listening early, get the lines early. But these lines, obviously have plenty of time to move because it's only Tuesday and the games don't play until Sunday. So
by the way, it's the Georgia Dome. Is that turf or is that artificial grass?
That's turf.
Is it turf?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to throw this out there for you. Jonathan Stewart on turf averages 7.5 yards per carry.
That's pretty good.
He only has 32 attempts, but 240 yards. So just gonna
that's pretty good.
Give you that little.
He's really come on late in the year.
He really has.
I think the Panthers are going to win that game.
I think they are too.
I think they're just trending a little bit better, despite Atlanta being at home.
Yeah, I like the Panthers in that game. Yeah, but I thought I'd give you that little tidbit of information for those of you Jonathan Stewart owners or streamers or 1 week fantasy league players.
That's a good one.
I know last week I was really worried with D'Angelo Williams possibly coming back. I know I texted Steve once I found out D'Angelo Williams was going to miss the game with my excitement. Yeah. And that he actually helped me bring a championship, even though, like Steve and I talked about last week, I was probably going up against one of the worst finals teams in fantasy football history.
Yeah, it got comical once they actually played the game, too. Yeah. He ended up with any more than 50 points? I looked and it was
just over, like it was 50 and a fraction.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that. And even I'm a little less concerned with D'Angelo Williams this week after he put up another good game, two great games out of 3. I'm not as worried about D'Angelo. So feel free to run Jonathan Stewart out there.
Sure, absolutely.
And if he doesn't get 7.5 yards per carry, you can blame ESPN split stats for that. Okay, well, I guess that wraps it up. Anything else to add, Steve?
No. Good luck if you're in your week 17, and thanks for listening all year. It's the reason that we do it. So
yeah, exactly. Check out nextlevelradioonline.com. Follow us at NXT Level Radio on Twitter, facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline. Steve is StephenRichards.net for his blog, at SRichards31. I'm at Adam Next Level. Joe is at JoeyWeb32. Like I said, keep an eye on Facebook and Twitter to see when we do maybe like an awards podcast and other podcasts throughout the off season. Again, like Steve said, thanks for listening all year. Happy holidays. Have a good new year. Have a safe new year. And we'll see you on our next podcast.
Thanks for listening to Primetime Fantasy Football. Send your questions into primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. And make sure to check out our weekly rankings, nextlevelradioonline.com, and go to the Primetime Fantasy Football tab. We'll post a link on Twitter and Facebook at NXT Level Radio or facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline.